Fire Emblem the Blazing Blade, known to the common man simply as Fire Emblem since that's what they put on the box, is one of the greatest games ever created. I don't have to prove it to you, and while I could using science and data, I'm going to prove it to your small infantile mind using emotions and charm in a way that you personally will nod and drool towards. But the true deeper meaning will only be comprehended by your mother, and even more than her, your father. Before you ask,
Ruby, are you sure that nostalgia and bias aren't plaguing your opinion?
my swift and prepared backhand of an answer is Knuckles 1 through 2. It's a delicious and devious experience displayed with the quintessential minimalism that I desire. And Knuckles 3 through 4, who cares if I'm blinded by nostalgia and bias? I'm right. Knuckle 5 is reserved for your boyfriend. Imagine you're you. No, wait. Imagine that you're me, giga of mind and body. While in the grand wanderings of your life, you stumble across a limber and tight woman, a woman of the plains. However, not plain in the slightest, she's facing tribulations. Local bandits murdered her family and she's now an orphan, and she will be getting revenge. She requests assistance, feeling an oppressive and spiritual pressure of confidence exuding from your cool and speechless presence. Knowing that you possess the physical prowess to destroy any and all opponents, you opt to develop your mental capacity. You choose to don a role from the backlines, allowing those around you to earn their pride and glory in combat. Lynn, one of our primary characters, begins to follow your every order and whim. It's not that kind of game, you sick, depraved freaks. I'm not paying any more innocent Etsy artists to draw YouTube-acceptable pornography for you. You can do it. It's honestly pretty reasonably priced these days. I keep thinking that normal people will appreciate commissions of niche and obscure busty women, but I'm beyond wrong and I don't know why I ever thought that would be a good idea. Lynn will follow your every combat-based order. The game assumes that you're brain dead, so it's pretty hard to mess up within the first few missions. This is the one downside I will acknowledge about this game. Due to this being the first installation of Fire Emblem within the North American market, the Japanese, assuming their standard superior stance, prepared the game for the predicated ape-minded American.
Hello, everyone!
Lynn and her respective portion of the story serve as an introduction and tutorial for the trials to come.
This game isn't in real time. It can't be that hard.
You're wrong and you're right, sweaty viewer. This game is hard if you're stupid. If you're large of mind, it's perhaps one of the greatest brain ticklers one could desire. The game isn't hard if you're smart. It's quite the nightmare if your barnacle's got a thick shell. In typical ancient Japanese tradition, they don't believe in second chances. Move a character and their body has been temporally locked in a square domain prison and no longer can move until your turn is over. Choose to have your one beefy unit relentlessly murder the shirtless bandits starving in the mountains while your weak and protein-deficient ranks hide behind a choke point, only to realize 5 missions later sometimes there's more than one choke point and no one is wide enough to cover the other half of the onslaught. There's no way to remedy this. You can technically soft-lock yourself in a position where only a few units are strong enough to handle the current enemy levels, but those few won't be enough. Let's take a step back. Gameplay. Fire Emblem is an FTRPG. For the layman, fantasy tactical role-playing game. More commonly known as, is this guy cute or did the Japanese design him to be just feminine enough to make me question my sexuality simulator? Fantasy should be clear. Burly boys and girls hacking normal humans into two with one slice. Gay wizards casting spells and shit trying to set your path ablaze like you haven't got places to be. Pink-haired anime girls giving you massive blue balls to top you off. Abominations spawned from the depths of hell, trying to get deep if you know what I mean. Tactical. I don't know if this is the correct definition, but if you put tactical in your game's title, or it could be categorized in the tactical genre, I'm going to assume that 90% of the game takes place on a grid, meaning that while the core gameplay mechanics are simple, most of your time will be spent preparing, positioning, and planning. The big triple Ps, as I like to call it. I really am a fan of triple Ps. Actual gameplay. How does one play Fire Emblem? I mean, you should be able to put it together, but sure, let me talk about it some more. It's not like I achieve a particular neural reaction, only possible by watching the same pixel animations over and over. Go ahead and select a character and you'll see that a grid appears. The blue is where you can walk and the red is where you can talk. And by talk, I mean beat the common folk and dissidents who have egregiously dethroned you and plan to usurp your uncle. Before taking action, let's do a little thinking. Why don't you take that little cursor there and hover over an enemy? See, you're not the only one who can walk and talk. Generally, it's safe to assume the minds of NPCs are vapid and unmoving. The moment one of your units walks into their sphere of existence, they'll come to life with one intention, to kill you. Even if that means they die. Let's actually engage in combat here. Whoa, that's a lot of numbers.
Ruby, I thought you weren't a nerd.
Hey bud, you're doing a lot of this, and I want you to not. This shit is what gets me going. The stats here should be super clear. Obviously we have HP and well, now we move on to MT and that means, might. obviously, meaning how hard you're going to get hit, or hit. Hit meaning your chance to hit. Let me stress, never plan on anything less than 100. If it's less than 100, plan on it failing. Having contingencies is crucial to success. Your crit being your chance to crit, and once you get a taste, trust me, you'll want more. The crits in this game are just... We now need to discuss triangles and how they relate to the game. Fire Emblem is basically just a reskin of rock, paper, scissors with extra steps. Swords beat axes, axes beat lances, and lances beat swords. For magic, prayer beats depression, depression beats flamboyance, and flamboyance beats prayer. Magic users are incredibly powerful, and druids are in my top 3 favorite units. This particular title only affords you one druid, and he's indispensable. Not only is he a powerhouse, but he can take axes to the gut as if a small child was punching him. Light magic users I always found to be underwhelming, but that's probably due to their character design not piquing my interest. I always found them pointless, as I'd much rather power level one of my priests to level 10 and then promote them to a bishop. The left hand of God heals and the right beats you to death. Bows exist, and they're kind of the flat earther of the group, since they don't really give a shit about your preconceived triangle notions and will hurt everyone equally, except for those hollow-boned horses. Fuck them. Bow people get giga damage on Pegasus units. Bow users are useful as they can obviously attack without being hit, as well as attack through terrain that others cannot. Axe and lance users will have the commonly available hand axes and jabs to use as either ranged or up-close attacks at the cost of damage and accuracy. You'll find yourself carefully equipping the right weapons before ending a unit's turn to ensure they can either attack or endure, depending on your need. As you play, a sense of who can do what will develop, but taking a moment to review a unit's stats should reveal what to expect from them when engaging in combat. Using your eyeballs and examining the unit's sprite should also provide most information needed without being overwhelmed by numbers. If they're a mounted unit, they can probably move further because horse. Flying means they can probably fly over things. It's not hyper complicated. I wonder if the knight covered head to toe in armor would be better at taking hits compared to the 9-year-old boy wearing a linen t-shirt who plays a flute. Use your brain. You'll also notice for the geometrically challenged among us who can't remember a simple triangle, your weapon will be displayed indicating if you're at a disadvantage or advantage. There are also special circumstance weapons that supersede anything I've explained so far. There are exceptions to the rules. Intentionally designed weapons more powerful against specific unit types also exist, typically focused on the emotionally bonded, whether living or material. Have fun discovering those. Now everything looks swell, so let's go ahead.
Oh, baby. They don't make it like they used to. Look at this. I mean, we've been looking, but look more. Look closer.
I haven't played any Fire Emblem games beyond the Game Boy Advance more than 30 minutes because the high just isn't the same. The pixels, they do something to me. Now keep in mind, while sword beats axe and so on, it's not always that simple. Units possessing a lower weapon skill level will not be as proficient with higher level weapons. Generally the weapon prefixes go slim, iron, steel, and silver. While iron may be stronger, it's also heavier. You may be better off using a slim lance to hit more or to be more accurate. You'll want to focus on ensuring your unit's weapon skills are being progressively worked on as you proceed through the game, as silver and special weapons are needed for the promoted enemy units to come. At the end of the day, that's the core gameplay loop. Place your units in advantageous positioning, don't overextend, let your stronger units support your weaker ones so they too can become powerhouses. Keep in mind that enemies like to spawn behind you, from staircases and castles, and sometimes just wherever they want. While with careful unit placement you can block these spawns, don't be a little bitch. It's more experience and you need that shit. Right now you're imagining that you're double-cheeked up bulbous bicep Ruby. But let's go back in time to when I was just a small little boy. Basically garter snakes for arms. I realized quite quickly that if Lynn dies, the game ends. So what do? Hide her in the backlines and allow essentially every other unit to fight while she does nothing. This was a mistake. My feeble, undeveloped body possessed a mind incapable of comprehending how heinous of a choice this was. Missions sometimes require specific units, and guess what? Every mission required you to bring Lynn, as she is the primary protagonist for her section of the story. I was choosing to voluntarily cull my fighting force by 10%. Every mission. While you are technically RPing as a mute who single-handedly guides a band of randos through battle after battle, fighting bandits, armies, dark wizards, and literal waifus, the real role-playing of this game comes in the form of your band of heroes, or family if you will. What makes Fire Emblem games special is scarcity. These 42 characters are the only ones you get. This is where more of the role-playing elements of the game come through. Who you choose to bring with you on missions, and how you design your go-to squad. What's worse is most of the time you're limited to 12 or so people per mission, making you choose your favorites while also maintaining a viable team composition. While some characters are given outright, either showing up as a new recruit or coming on as reinforcements during a level, others must be emotionally manipulated via 1 or 2 characters to join your ranks. One of the first individuals you can add to your roster is the silent burly axe wielder, Dorcas. Dorcas demonstrates two primary themes we'll encounter through the rest of the game. Most available enemy units can be recruited by your lord or primary protagonist, and the Japanese are either clowning on us or got absolutely shit-faced when doing name design. While most of the playable characters are somewhat tame in their naming conventions, Dorcas being one of my favorite outliers, the enemy boss names are like walking into a dimly lit room with a corkboard covered in red string somehow explaining the logic behind some of these names. We got Glass, Hines, Wire, Fargus, Bug, Boole, Boys, and Brendan. I love it. The recruitable characters are commodities. While I will most likely never use 50% of them, I refuse to let any not join my ranks. Part of my soul withers away when a recruitable character slips through my fingers or dies on the battlefield, their final death throes of a text box tormenting me. That's the other part. If a character dies, they're fucking dead, bro.
But Ruby, we can just retry, like, into the breach, right?
Absolutely not.
But maybe between missions we can heal them and bring them back to life, like in Fuga, Melody of Steel, right?
Let me explain something to you. When a person's body is hewn into two by a 100-pound piece of cold hard steel, there's no amount of wishes or bed rest that can heal that wound. If a person is driven mad by dark magic scrambling their mind like the 3 dozen egg omelet I eat every morning to maintain size and girth, there's no amount of white people therapy sessions that can bring them back. The only way to get a character back would be to start the mission over, and simply turning the game off and on is not sufficient. More on that later. The brutal nature of this game gives meaning to each unit's life, making you more conscious of your actions and not so willing to spend the lives of your faithful units to win a mission. The 3 units that cannot die under any circumstances are your lords Lynn, Elliewood, and Hector. The canon of this game relies on these 3 surviving and thriving. A quick reminder that I also refused to continue a mission after any character had died, so I essentially chose to never use one mandatory unit out of fear for death, even though every death meant a restart for me. Jump forward to current day Burmese Python Bicep Boy Ruby, and I've acquired a much more mature and refined fear of women. It's 2023 and girls are just as strong as boys. Lynn deserves to kill as many people as the next male. This brings us to the long-term planning one must do when playing these games. Experience, efficacy. Like fish and bread, you must ethically and efficiently spread experience to the masses. One change I believe Sacred Stones made for the better was giving the opportunity to train up units outside of the main story battles. While less effective, like killing hundreds of Lechonks compared to one Blissey, you at least have the option to grind outside of the main game to bring up your other units to viable levels. In Blazing Blade, if you're 20 missions in, you don't have a lot of wiggle room left there, bud. If you hit something and don't kill it, you're looking at 10 experience points. End another person's life and they'll be reduced to 30 to 50 experience. If they're promoted, maybe more. If you kill a character with a custom sprite, you're looking at a whole level. Is this exact? No. Does it matter? No. Stop acting like you're going to make a spreadsheet and prove me wrong. It's the idea that you need to pay attention to. You'll find that part of your strategy won't be simply focused on ensuring kills, but rather who is doing the killing to most efficiently level your units. Having some spread of levels is expected and normal. Some missions will have opportunities to lure enemies into range. Your developed units will beat them nearly to death and allow your resident child soldiers to deal the killing blow, while other missions will require units with higher defense to endure the brunt of attacks or stronger units to plow through enemy lines. You may need a mounted unit to deliver your thief to rob the people you're trying to save before local bandits get there first. Unit types and their stats will determine who has the gumption to make it. There's a surprising amount of depth to each unit. For a physical fighter like Oswin, we have HP, which should be clear. Strength correlates to attack power or how much damage we can do. Skill affects if you can actually hit your desired target. Speed will determine how many hits you get. Movement is how many tiles one can travel on the map. Luck determines critical chance, but as far as you should be concerned, it's 50-50. Defense is how you hold up against your typical lances, swords, and arrows being buried in your flesh. Resistance is how much electricity, fire, or divine light one can handle. The Constitution determines if you're fat or not. The only main difference is for magic units like Canis, where magic replaces strength, but this is purely a role-playing change as it too reflects their potential damage. You'll also want to be careful with becoming too much of a powerhouse or becoming too lucky. What I mean by this is, take this boat level for example. You don't know what's coming, so the smart play is to place your bulky units up front and let them endure a hit or two. On your turn, you'll heal and kill what you can with ranged units. The issue that can occur is when somebody is just a little too strong or a little too lucky. A kill at the wrong time could spell another fight, and while your beefy boy can be pounded over and over, decapitating grunt after grunt, after a thorough bludgeoning you may find that even a weak unit can deal the final damaging blow. An unlucky crit may open a unit you expected to endure one attack to another. Again, it's 50-50, which is why almost all action should only be taken if the failure of that predicted outcome also works. While you can choose to min-max waste your units in this game, I would say don't waste your time. Why? The absolute core of this game is an unfathomably devious yet dominating force of nature that persists as the primary pillar of your experience. RNG. Some nerd can probably get mad and explain this better than I can, but let me lay out how the game works. When you start a mission, your fate is predestined. While you possess agency, you don't actually have any free will. What happens is going to happen, and if you were to somehow go back in time, the same events would repeat over and over, no matter how much you tried to change things. The simplest way to explain this would be during a combat engagement. If your hit rate isn't 100, you guessed it, it's closer to 50-50. This is the mentality that you need to adopt. Mission after mission, you'll land every 90% chance hit. You'll begin to feel confident taking 80% chances. Shoot, why not even risk it on a 70%? And then it'll happen. You'll miss back-to-back 99% chances while the brain-dead bandit slaps your frail Pegasus girlie to death with only a 32% chance to hit. You'll panic. Turn the game off before she fades out. You know the game saves between moves automatically, but maybe you can turn back the clock and run the chance again, only to be met with the exact same result. Again and again, poor Florina will be wiped from this earth. The events had been decided. Her fate was sealed. The RNG for this moment was inevitable. The only way to get her back is by trying the whole level over again. RNG isn't only tied to the fate of each attack at any given moment, but also your level ups. You may notice that when a unit levels up, the stats given may be ever so in your favor, while other times not so much. Stat gains are not precise, and I don't care what anybody says. They're not predictable, which is why when it comes to your team composition, I strongly suggest you simply craft a team who you think looks the coolest. With half a brain cell and intelligent play, it won't matter who you picked. I don't care if it takes me 5 times longer. I'm not giving any experience to Sane and Kent. They're fucking normies. The only cavalier getting any attention from me is Lowen. He's my big, quiet Sigma horseboy. Just like in Pokemon, if you choose to purposefully use a unit that's already been promoted, you're insane. Marcus the Paladin will only be used in life or death situations to save the day, and the moment I can bench that fool, he's gone. Oh, Bartrey the fighter? Yeah, he hasn't contributed to a single combat encounter. Same with Dorcas. Why? Because Hector is me and Dart's a goddamn pirate. I don't care if Matthew isn't that strong. I'm getting him to level 20 and making him an assassin because he's my OG. Speaking of level 20, that's when you should promote a unit. Characters in this game can be promoted after reaching level 10. These promotions grant a massive boost in stats and potentially add more skills, or even can cause a human to grow a horse. Only cowards choose to promote their units at level 10. Real Chads push their units further beyond their weakling bodies will allow to the top level of 20, then promote the unit to maximize the potential levels they can gain before capping out at 20 in their promoted state. Promotion items are rare, but with careful planning and back-channel access, you should be able to level any unit you'd like and promote all of your favorite characters. After Lynn, you'll progress the story to Eli Wood, which is where the real game begins. No more hand-holding. Mr. Wood becomes our primary protagonist, and you set out on a journey to save the world. Scarcity continues to display itself through all aspects of the game, including mission quantity, which is why all side missions should be sought after. While some are presented at the end of missions by default, others must be unlocked by meeting special conditions. That could be achieving your goal in under a specified amount of turns, forcing you to play in a more aggressive way than you normally would. You may need to visit one of the villages or towns on the map, flirting with the common folks, wowing them with your muscles, being given the information needed to follow up on a side quest. Or you'll need to ensure an AI-controlled teammate doesn't die. The AI inside your ally's mind may or may not go full bonkers. You'll also need to hope that the specific unit doesn't crit too often. What unit is that? An assassin who specializes in crits. The best way to ensure this edgelord McGee stays alive is by having one of your biggest and bulkiest units pick him up and not put him back down. This is an incredibly viable strategy when trying to keep your own units or those controlled by AI alive. You can rescue and hold units who may have gotten themselves into a prickly situation. I've probably beaten this game about 4 times since my childhood, but beyond simply diversifying your playthrough by using different units, there are separate campaigns that can be unlocked. After a single clear of the game, you'll be given the option to play through with any of the 3 primary lords. There is, however, the best mode, Hector's hard mode, because Hector is hard and he makes me hard. Through inspiration to push my muscles at the gym to become bigger and stronger. This campaign includes 6 new missions and general changes to the story with more units, higher levels, and more challenge. Hector is literally him, a guy who has 0 training and simply taught himself how to swing an axe good. Oh, the story? Dragons fucked a bunch of shit up, but not the good dragons. Those ones were chill and are hanging out banging in the desert. There was a bunch of crazy old people who beat the dragons into submission and yeeted them into another dimension. Then some edgelord in a turban tried to pedo on some dragon kids, but don't worry, they're actually thousands of years old. Long story short, some dude is trying to turn dragons into the next hot renewable resource, and you have to stop him. The story is somewhat interesting and is entirely told between missions through at times tedious dialogue. Very classic JRPG. End of the day, you should play this game. It's one of the best tactics titles to have ever been made, and I believe it still holds up and is way better than most tactics games coming out today. How would you play this? Well, obviously, you just pull out your Game Boy Advance copy and play on the Epilogue GBA to USB system that you own. Duh, that's the only legal way to play. Well, obviously, if you own a copy, you could just emulate it by downloading a ROM off of any website, so there's that. But if you don't, you absolutely shouldn't do that. Obviously. Well, howdy. Thanks for watching my video. This was a challenging one to make, but I'm happy with how it came out. I've been uber busy IRL and smashed this bad boy out in about 2 weeks. I intended to work slower through June, but your boy procrastinated. I really want to get at least one video out a month, but you can't rush bulbous genius. Thank you to all my Patreons for supporting my videos and artistic endeavors. I appreciate you all so very much. And thank you, random viewer, for getting this far. More videos and content to come. I still stream sporadically, but plans to come back consistently are in the works starting in September. I simply have too many meat space objectives at this time, but not for much longer. Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's your big titty bitch here, PPP. I love you, bye.